Kada Scott disappeared the night of October 4th. Her remains were found just 2 weeks later at the former Ada Lewis Middle School in Germantown. More now on the list of charges that King is facing, including robbery and abuse of a corpse.
October 4th, 2025. A 23-year-old woman texts someone she knows. The message? Kidnap me again. 20 minutes later, her phone goes dark. 2 weeks after that, police find her body in a shallow grave. But here's what's going to haunt you. This wasn't the first time he'd done this, and the system let him walk free. Before we dive into this case, if you're new to Crime Files, do me a favor. Hit that like button, smash subscribe, and turn on that bell icon because we cover cases like this that need to be heard. Stories that demand justice. Now, let's talk about Kada Scott. Kada wasn't just another face in the crowd. This girl was doing things. At 19 years old, while most of us were figuring out college, she renovated her own spa. Yeah, you heard that right. She opened K-Dollar Beauty Facial Spa in MT Airy, Philadelphia. She was a Penn State graduate with a degree in communications. She'd been a cheerleader there. She designed her own clothing brand because fashion was her passion. And in the summer of 2025, she decided to try something new. Pageants. She won Miss Philadelphia Township USA 2025. Competed in Miss Pennsylvania USA against 31 other women. Her family said she loved every second of it and couldn't wait to do it again. Her father described her as creative, full of life, the kind of person who lit up a room. She was the oldest of 2 kids, and she was looking into starting her own healthcare business. 23 years old with the world at her feet. But there was something else going on in Kada's life. Something darker. Someone darker. His name was Keon King. 21 years old. And here's where this story takes a turn that's going to make your blood boil. King had already been arrested earlier that same year for kidnapping and strangling another woman. There was even a viral video of part of that attack. His 2-year-old daughter was in the back seat when it happened. You know what happened to that case. It got dropped. The victim and witness didn't show up to court, and the system just let it go. Let him go. And now we have to ask ourselves, if that case had been prosecuted properly, would Kada Scott still be alive today? October 4th starts like any normal evening for Kada. She's getting ready for her overnight shift at the Terrace at Chestnut Hill, an assisted living facility where she worked. Around 9:45 p.m., she goes home to borrow her mother's car. She leaves for work. She's supposed to start at 10 p.m., but something happens between leaving home and starting that shift. Something that would end her life before the night was over. And it all started with a text message that investigators would later find. A message that makes this case even more disturbing than you could imagine. So let's talk about those text messages because this is where things get really strange and really dark. At 10:07 p.m., Kada texts Keon King. Remember, this is the same guy who'd been arrested for kidnapping someone else just months before. She writes, "Kidnap me again." He responds, "Better be up to." 2 minutes later, at 10:09, she texts him, "CM when you here." That's come when you're here. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would she text something like that? Was this some kind of joke between them? Some weird relationship dynamic we don't understand? Investigators found that Scott and King were in communication before her disappearance, but the nature of their relationship isn't entirely clear from public reports. What we do know is this. At 10:15 p.m., just 6 minutes after that last text, cell phone data shows Kada and Keon are together near her workplace. 9 minutes after that, at 10:24 p.m., Kada Scott's phone goes completely offline. Think about that timeline. She arrives at work around 10 p.m. She's texting him. 15 minutes later, they're together. 24 minutes after arriving at work, her phone is off. Not dead battery off. Deliberately off. The next morning, October 5th, Kada's mother reports her missing. And here's what they find. Her mother's car is sitting in the employee parking lot at the Terrace. Inside her bag, they find her iPad, iPhone, and Apple Watch. But the bag isn't in the car. It's outside. Her debit card and glasses are found nearby, just scattered around. Does that sound like someone who left voluntarily? Or does that sound like a struggle? For days, police search. The family is desperate. They're posting on social media, organizing searches, begging anyone with information to come forward. Kada's father talks about his creative, beautiful daughter. Her mother can't understand how this happened. How does someone just vanish from their workplace? October 14th, 10 days after she disappeared, the homicide unit takes over the investigation. That's when the family knows. Deep down, they know she's not coming home alive. The next day, October 15th, police arrest Keon King. They charge him with kidnapping, but they still haven't found Kada. Then on October 18th, 2 weeks after she vanished, police get a tip. And this tip is specific, really specific. The tipster tells them, "Go back, she's there. Look again." They give details about exactly where to look. Police go to a wooded area near the old Ada H. Lewis Middle School. It's abandoned, overgrown, the kind of place nobody really goes to anymore. And that's where they find her, in a shallow grave. Kada Scott, the girl with the spa and the pageant crown and the whole future ahead of her, buried in the dirt like she was nothing. The medical examiner's report comes back. Gunshot wound to the head. Homicide. But how did she get there? And what evidence tied Keon King to this murder? Let me walk you through what investigators piece together, because this is where you see how careful killers think they are and how technology catches them anyway. Remember how I mentioned Keon King was arrested on October 15th? 3 days before they found Kada's body, police already had their eyes on him. Cell phone data is a beautiful thing when you're trying to solve a murder. It puts people in places they can't lie about. But King wasn't just using his own car. The night before Kada disappeared, October 3rd, just before midnight, a food delivery worker leaves their Hyundai Accent running while making a delivery. Somebody steals it. That somebody, according to prosecutors, was Keon King. Why steal a car right before murder? Because you don't want your own vehicle caught on surveillance cameras. You want something that can't be traced back to you. Something disposable. Here's where the surveillance footage comes in. On October 5th, the day after Kada disappeared, at 11:39 p.m., cameras catch King's registered Toyota Camry pulling into a recreation center. This rec center is right next door to where Kada's body would eventually be found. 2 people get out of the car. 4 hours later, the same cameras catch 2 people coming back. And here's the detail that makes your stomach turn. They're carrying something large out of the passenger side. Something consistent with the size and shape of a human body. They're moving her in the middle of the night, thinking nobody will ever know. And that stolen Hyundai Accent I mentioned, King allegedly burns it, completely torches it, because that car was used to move Kada to different locations, and fire destroys evidence. Or at least, he thought it would. Prosecutors believe King didn't act alone. Surveillance shows 2 people. Officials have said publicly that they think others were involved in Kada's disappearance and death. So, who was the second person? That's a question that still hangs over this case. King gets charged with everything. Murder, kidnapping, arson, robbery, theft, abuse of a corpse, tampering with evidence. The list goes on. They set his bail at $2.5 million. And here's where this case becomes a story about system failure, as much as it's about murder. Remember that previous kidnapping case from January 2025? The one with the viral video where King allegedly strangled another woman while his 2-year-old daughter sat in the back seat? That case gets reopened. And Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner has to stand in front of cameras and admit, we could have done better. He says a more sophisticated approach would have been to put together all the evidence, including the video. You know what that's code for? We dropped the ball. We let a dangerous man walk free. And now a young woman is dead. If that case had been prosecuted properly, if King had been in jail where he belonged, Kada Scott would have worked her shift on October 4th and gone home safe. Let's talk about what Kada's family had to endure, because that's the part of these cases that doesn't get enough attention. Imagine your daughter leaves for work. Normal evening. She borrowed your car. She's doing what she does every week. Then she never comes home. You call the police. They search. Days go by. Then a week. Then 2 weeks. And every single day, you're holding on to hope even though deep down, you know something terrible has happened. October 18th, when they find Kada's body, that hope dies. The family releases a statement that breaks your heart. They say, "It is with profound sadness that we share the tragic passing of our beloved daughter, Kada Scott. Our hearts are shattered, yet we are deeply grateful for the outpouring of love, support, and prayers from people across the nation and around the world. Kada was deeply, deeply loved. Her light kindness and beautiful spirit will forever remain in our hearts." On October 21st, 3 days after finding her body, the community holds a candlelight vigil at the Ada Lewis Middle School site, the same place where she was buried in the ground. People who never met Kada show up because her story touched them, because this could have been their daughter, their sister, their friend. Donations pour in to help the family, because on top of grieving, there are funeral costs. There's a younger sister who just lost her big sister. There are parents who have to figure out how to keep living when their firstborn child was murdered. And through all of this, they have to watch the court case unfold. They have to hear details about how their daughter died. They have to see the man accused of killing her. They have to live with the knowledge that the system failed to protect her when it had the chance. Think about the other woman, the one from January, the one who was attacked, strangled, and somehow survived. She didn't show up to court. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she didn't trust the system to protect her. Maybe she just wanted to move on with her life. But her absence from that courtroom put Kada Scott in King's path. I'm not blaming that victim. Not at all. She went through her own trauma. But it shows how these cases are connected. How one failure creates the opportunity for the next tragedy. Kada Scott was 23 years old. She graduated college, built a business as a teenager, won a pageant title, was planning her next venture. She had a family that adored her, friends who loved her, a whole community that's now mourning her. She sent a text message that said, "Kidnap me again," and hours later she was dead. What was the context of that message? What was their relationship really like? Those are questions investigators are still working to fully understand. But here's what we know for certain. Kada Scott deserved to live. So where does this leave us? As I'm recording this, Keon King is sitting in jail on $2.5 million bail, awaiting trial for Kada Scott's murder. He's facing life in prison if convicted. The investigation is ongoing. Authorities still believe others were involved, and they're working to identify and charge those accomplices. But let's zoom out for a second and talk about what this case really represents. This is a story about a young black woman who was doing everything right. Education, business, creativity, ambition. She was the American dream in action. And she was killed by someone the system had already identified as dangerous. Someone who'd already shown what he was capable of. Someone who should have been behind bars. How many times do we see this pattern? A violent offender gets a second chance they don't deserve. They're released, charges dropped, cases dismissed, and then someone else pays the price with their life. The Philadelphia DA admitted they could have done better, but could have done better doesn't bring Kada back. It doesn't give her parents their daughter back. It doesn't let her little sister grow up with her big sister. We talk a lot on this channel about justice, about holding people accountable, about the failures in our system. This case is all of that rolled into one tragedy, and it leaves us with some really uncomfortable questions. Psychological questions that don't have easy answers. Why do we as a society keep giving violent offenders the benefit of the doubt? Is it because we want to believe in rehabilitation? Or is it because we don't value certain victims enough to keep them safe? What goes through someone's mind when they decide to take another person's life? When they bury someone in a shallow grave and think they'll get away with it? Is it pure evil? Mental illness? A complete lack of empathy? Can we even understand that kind of mindset? And here's the one that keeps me up at night. How many Keon Kings are out there right now, walking free, with prior violent cases that got dismissed, waiting to claim their next victim? These aren't rhetorical questions. These are things we need to talk about as a society. These are conversations that need to happen in courtrooms and police departments and DA's offices. Kada Scott's murder was preventable. Full stop. And that's the most painful part of this entire story. If this case made you angry, if it made you sad, if it made you want to see change in how we handle violent offenders, leave a comment below. Tell me what you think needs to change. Share this video so more people know Kada's name and her story. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Crime Files. Hit that like button. Turn on notifications. Because we're going to keep covering these cases. We're going to keep asking hard questions. We're going to keep demanding justice for victims like Kada Scott. Her light was extinguished way too soon. The least we can do is make sure she's never forgotten.